With the Blazers currently in the midst of their first round playoff series versus the Los Angeles Lakers, let's take a look back at the top 5 storylines and moments from the Blazers' 8 seeded games. What's up, guys? It is Peak Reacts, and I'm bringing you the first episode of Rip City Rundown. Throughout this episode, we're going to be talking about the top 5 moments from the Blazers seeded games, and look out for more Rip City Rundown videos in the future, as we will focus mostly on just Blazer content. So let's jump right into the number 5 moment of the seeded games, and that's going to be Jusuf Nurkic's impact and emergence since the injury. As you all know, back in 2019, on March 26th, Jusuf Nurkic went down with a season-ending leg fracture, and it was a gruesome-looking injury. And it was wondered if Jusuf Nurkic would ever come back to what he used to be. And he's proven that in these seeded games. He's averaged 17 points and 10 rebounds throughout the seeded games, and then the Blazers' big man throughout, playing many minutes and taking over that starting 5 spot over Hassan Whiteside. Nurkic has been a huge part of the Blazers' offense, as in the first game back, he put up 18 points and 9 rebounds to go along with 5 assists, 6 blocks, and 2 steals. And that was his first live game back in over a year and about a half. Jusuf Nurkic has been a huge part of this team, as even looking at the Brooklyn game, he put up 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. And the biggest part of this, he was a plus 10 in that game. Nurkic has found success even stretching the floor some, as he's hit countless threes. We won't say countless, but we'll say he's hit a good portion of threes, as he was not a stretch big back when he was playing for the Blazers before his injury. And what surprises me the most about Nurkic is the minutes he's played. The Blazers have really relied on him to play a big load of minutes, especially down the stretch in all these clutch games. He's put up 33, 32, 29, 35, 33, 29, 29, and 33 minutes a game. That's a lot of minutes for a guy coming back after a year and a half off. We also look at his game against Boston, where he put up 30 points and was an absolute monster offensively throughout that game, despite coming up short. But Nurkic has really looked the part in being the future center for the Blazers, and I'm glad his emergence has come out and helped the Blazers throughout the seeded games. Coming in at number 4 on the biggest storylines for the Blazers seeded games, we're going to talk about Gary Trent's emergence. Gary Trent in these bubbles has averaged 14 points a game to go along 1 assist, 1 rebound, but the key stat for him, he's shooting 48.5% from the 3 ball. Gary Trent has played in all 11 games, and he has given significant minutes offensively and defensively. Some of the standout games for him include his game against Denver, when he put up 27 points on 7 of 10 shooting from 3. He also put up 22 the next game against the Clippers on 6 of 10 shooting from 3. He even put up 21 against Boston on 7 of 11 shooting from 3. He's been one of the best 3-point shooters in the bubble statistically. He is 5th in the NBA on 3-point makes a game with 3.5, trailing only his teammate Damian Lillard at 5, JJ Redick, James Harden, and Fred VanVleet. That's some pretty solid company to be in. But what sometimes goes unnoticed about Gary Trent is his grit and defensive ability. He came into the NBA draft more of a scorer, but he has improved mightily on the defensive end to be one of the best defenders on the Blazers team. He's even checking LeBron right now in the first round of the playoffs. His grit and tenacity has also proven huge for the Blazers. A big moment that I think of is the Clippers game, when he went head-to-head with Paul George and went back and forth and got into a little scuffle with him, a little talking. But that grit is what you need from a player, like a role player like Gary Trent Jr. His emergence has been huge for Portland, and he's finally that big 3-point shooter and defender that the Blazers need. Gary Trent Jr. has been a huge success in the bubble. Coming in at number 3 on the biggest storylines from the Blazers seeded games, let's talk about Carmelo Anthony and how clutch he has been down the stretch in specifically 3 games of the seeded games. The first game of the restart, he had a clutch 3 to go up against the Grizzlies. Big time bucket, put us ahead, and tied the game. Just overall a huge bucket down the stretch where you need him, because you can't just rely on Dame to hit every single shot. Then we got the Rockets game. He had the go-ahead bucket down the stretch to widen the lead and to almost seal the game versus the Rockets. Another huge shot from Melo. And then the dagger 3 ball versus the Grizzlies. We're up 3 nearing the end of the game in the play-in game, and Carmelo Anthony hits a dagger 3-ball to go up 6 to beat the Grizzlies and move on to the playoffs. Carmelo Anthony's taken over that 3 spot, where normally in the past years we would see Mo Harkless or Al-Farouq Aminu, and he has significantly been better offensively and in the catch-and-shoot threes, especially in the clutch. He's a guy that we can rely on to hit a big shot in the corner if we need him, unlike we have been able to with Aminu or Harkless. And that's huge for the Blazers and Damian Lillard specifically offensively, because now he trusts his teammates to hit open shots when they get him down the stretch. Carmelo Anthony being clutch has been a huge part of the Blazers' success in the restart. Number 2 on the biggest storylines of the restart, we're going to go to both Grizzlies games. And beating the Grizzlies twice were the 2 biggest games of our season. 2 of the biggest games of our season. And some big moments happened in this game. We already talked about Nurk and his games. He's had 2 great games versus the Grizzlies. We look at the first game, as I mentioned, he dropped 18, 9, 5, and 6. 18, 9, 5, and 6 for your first game back is beautiful. And then the second game versus Grizzlies, he put up 22, 21, and 6. He was a plus 18 that game. Yusuf Nurkic was great versus the Grizzlies. And then we look at Melo. He had big-time clutch buckets against the Grizzlies, but overall these games versus the Grizzlies were huge, and that's why it's number 2 on the storylines. We look at the first game first, the overtime thriller. We were playing well throughout the whole game. Then we had our third quarter blunder where we were outscored by 11. But we came back, clutched it out, came back in the fourth, and tied it up going into overtime, and then we won in overtime 140-135. Some big players in these games were Gary Trent. He came out and emerged. This was his first emergence game. He went 4 for 5 from 3, ended with 17 points. CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, 33 and 29 respectively. CJ clutch down the stretch with some big buckets to put the Blazers game away, and then Melo putting up 21, and don't even get me started on Nurk. Overall, that was a beautiful game. Sorry, I got Jordan Kent talking to me through the screen. And then let's go to the second game. We saw very similar production from the same players. We saw CJ McCollum put up 29 and huge buckets down the stretch when he hit the step back against John Morant and then turned to the camera and said, "You can't bleep with me." Then we look at Damian Lillard. He put up 31 points, a plus 17 in the plus minus with 10 assists. Nurkic, I already got it with him. And then Melo, 21 points, including 10 of 10 from the free throw line. That was a big time performance from Melo. Our game against the Grizzlies, both games against the Grizzlies, proved that the Blazers deserve to be that 8th spot over the Grizzlies. We beat them twice, and those games were huge. Huge games, confidence-wise, and then obviously to get the 8th seed. That's why it's number 2 on the storylines. You knew this was coming. You knew this had to be mentioned. Number 1 on the storylines and moments from the Blazers seeded games has got to be Damian Lillard's absurd performances to will this team to a playoff spot. Let's just jump into the numbers to start. Damian Lillard averaged 35 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds on 47% shooting and 43% from 3. Damian Lillard was an absolute monster in this bubble, and that's why he took home bubble MVP. He took home bubble MVP and was first team all bubble. Took the MVP over Devin Booker because we made the playoffs. In my opinion, that's why he ended up getting that honor. Whoever made the playoffs there probably would have got the MVP. But let's just jump into specific games. Damian Lillard, don't even get me started on the 61-point game against Dallas. The last 3 games from Lillard, the 3 almost basically ended up being all must-win games. He put on an absolute show. Obviously, against the Clippers, he only put up 22 and missed those 2 key free throws down the stretch. And he had the beef with Patrick Beverley and Paul George, and that created that fire for Damian Lillard, and he didn't look back from there. Put up 51, 61, 42. We'll jump into the Philly game first. 51 points, 7 assists. He hit only 4 threes that game, but he ended up willing this team to a victory. All these games, he was a positive in the plus and minus department. He hasn't had a negative game since. He hasn't had a negative game once in the restart as I'm looking. But his performance against Philly, willing the team to victory down the stretch, 51 points, that was just the start. That gave us a sneak peek of what we were to see in the next 2 games. He put up 61 against Dallas. 61 points, including 9 3-balls. He hit that huge 3-ball that bounced to the moon, it seemed like, in that one, and willed the team to a victory. And then in the final game against Brooklyn, he put up 8 3-balls, 42 points and 12 assists. His assist numbers have been beautiful in this restart. He's at 12 twice, 16 once. Damian Lillard has been a monster in this restart, and he's proven that he is definitely... I'm not one that forgets about Curry. I still believe Curry is the best player, best point guard in the league, but Damian Lillard is definitely coming up on his tail. Damian Lillard is definitely the best deep ball shooter. He's hitting 54 shots from 30-plus feet this year. Steph Curry's only hit 61 throughout his career. So anyone saying Damian Lillard isn't the best deep ball shooter is absolutely absurd. Damian Lillard, proven that he is a top, in my opinion, 7 player in the NBA. He's been top 5 in the bubble, obviously, but when everyone's healthy, in my opinion, he's a top 7. He's pushed himself away from Westbrook, if that even was a debate. Westbrook is by far not as good as Damian Lillard, along with Kyrie Irving, nowhere near Damian Lillard's level. And hopefully he can lead the Blazers to a possible upset series win against the Lakers. They're currently down 2-1. He willed them to a Game 1 victory, but Game 2 and 3 just didn't go the Blazers' way. So yeah, that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to drop a comment or subscribe, drop a like. Comment what you think could have made the list, if you think this was a good order, if you think I hit the key points of the Blazers restart. I've really enjoyed watching the Blazers play in these bubble games. I look forward to hopefully finishing off the Lakers. We're down 2-1 right now, but you never know. We have the talent to possibly win the series. That's going to do it, guys. Make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram if you're coming from there at rip.city.rundown. A lot of Blazer news there. And make sure to subscribe here because I'm going to do a lot more Blazer videos in the future. That'll be it, guys. Peace.